Hi everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Today we're recording a video about kindness and tenderness. And let's probably start not with a definition, but with what many say. This is a kind person, but for some reason their life isn't working out, or some injustice happens to them. And in this regard, my question is, what is kindness really, and should kindness always be rewarded?
To me, kindness is rewarded. What is kindness? Kindness is when you truly have the desire and you also have the energy to simply provide help to someone just because. So for me, kindness is really when you always have a little extra space inside of you to do something kind or thoughtful for someone else, even if it is just a small gesture or a simple act of caring. It is about being willing to reach out, even in small ways, whenever you can. Real, let's say, true kindness.
Real, but there are people who seem to do a lot for others, and it seems to be useful. But at the same time, they later reproach them, especially when it comes to spouses, parents, and children. They say, look how much I've done for you. And it looks like kindness. But for some reason, manipulation arises.
Yes, manipulation arises when this kindness was done not because the person had the energy for it, or there were some desires, opportunities, but the person deprives themselves somewhere, and by depriving themselves, does good for someone. In that case, that's exactly when grievances appear. I can say that from observing myself, I know for sure that in moments when I did kindness because you sort of want to and you do it, and you think, well, I seem to have this state, the opportunity to do this kindness. And then at some point, some kind of internal backlash happens and you get angry at this person and you start having some probably unpleasant feelings. You get irritated. At some point, I realized that there's a certain, internal limit, an internal limit. If you sort of cross this internal limit, you'll likely slide back into having irritation later because you gave from yourself, so to speak. For example, for you during the day, let's say we take a scale of 10. You have 10 certain points that are necessary for yourself in order for you to feel good. But for example, on some day you have 11 or 12, let's say, points. And if these 1 or 2 extra points are directed towards kindness, then you won't even feel that you did something. That is, you gave something away. And it's, you didn't even feel it. It was just pleasant for you. After some time, this person does some kindness of their own in return or from somewhere. It doesn't matter where it comes back from. It always comes back. And since you did it from an excess, it comes back to you as +2, +3. So you really feel that it has come back to you. But if you squeeze out of these 10, leave yourself 8 and give away these 2, and you've already given them as -2, then accordingly, -4 comes back to you.
Okay, well, look, we've been talking more about doing good for others, but how does kindness towards oneself manifest? Because we've linked kindness and tenderness together. So now we want to explore the topic of a more gentle attitude towards oneself. But at the same time, I also want to mention that a gentle attitude towards oneself can go to the other extreme. I mean, there are people who don't take care of themselves at all and don't pay attention to their wants or desires. And then there are people who, it seems on the contrary, overindulge themselves with something excessive, I think. So, two extremes. And where's this middle ground? What does it really mean to be kind and tender, gentle with yourself without going to any extremes?
Being kind, tender, and gentle with yourself. And that's something I really try to understand. I have an understanding of it, and I remind myself of this often. We're also moving in the direction of this understanding. I can't say that I've fully mastered it, but I'm in the process. For me, first and foremost, kindness manifests when you don't put yourself off. There are, yes, these extremes. I don't know what it's like when you do everything excessively for yourself. Honestly, no idea. I haven't tried it that way yet. I don't know. But I know what it's like to deprive yourself and push yourself to the point of some illnesses. I don't know, buying something for someone, but okay, I'll wait. It's no big deal. Next time. These things, yes, I know I can talk about that, but what it's like when there's an excess, well, I don't know, maybe you can tell us.
Well, I also can't say excess, but I probably meant here as if it's unhealthy egoism, and out of fear that you won't get enough, you're trying to grab it in the moment. But that's also my assumption. I don't know if that's true, but I think that also happens, that people are I want this and I want that, when they don't actually need it, but they grab it because there's an opportunity to grab it.
Yes, yes, yes. You just reminded me of the Soviet times, how they did things just in case for a rainy day in reserve. Yes, there are such people. Most often I don't meet them. Mostly I meet those who, well, deprive themselves. Maybe it's just attracts, I think both are just some, again, extremes. If, say, you deprive yourself, or on the contrary, you try to get everything only for yourself, that's probably also another side of the extreme where you already, as if there's no feeling. If there's a feeling that it's too much, it doesn't bring any benefit either. It can also, well, figuratively rot. And it, for example, a crate of, I don't know, extra potatoes, it will go to waste anyway. That's exactly where the ideal is, so that everything is used on time and for the good. And to reach this state where you went to the doctor on time, did a workout on time, I don't know, bought something for yourself, updated it, and to do all this out of precisely good intentions. You know, there's such a big difference that I also track, again, on social media when they say, like we talked about before, that you deserve it. Yes, of course, we all deserve a good life, but this worthiness isn't about you being frantic and aggressive. And you say, I don't know, I'll buy it anyway because I deserve it. But probably when you're, say, trying on a dress, you're really enjoying the moment and you buy it because you feel it, like it's coming from a good place. But when you're walking along all angry saying, I'm buying you anyway, and you buy it, then it's probably not about kindness anymore, right? This is also probably a certain trend that exists, which I'd like to explain a bit.
By the way, I realized, after all, yes, the question about grabbing things, that's for me. Maybe I can tell you. I realized I had this period when my parents were buying me dresses. Well, rather, I used dates as an excuse to get new dresses bought for me.
Cool.
Mom was worried about my personal life, and I realized at that moment that if I'm going on a date, I can ask for a new dress. Anyway, and at some point, I ended up with a wardrobe, part of which I didn't wear at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that, like, I spent, well, not me, but my parents spent money on this. It turned out to be a useless thing. I didn't spend it on education or a massage or anything. It just went into clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have actually spent it on some other things that would have benefited me. So here, yes, there's this extreme, and it's a question of, roughly speaking, resources. If you invest excessively somewhere, well, push too hard on one thing, then essentially you get a gap somewhere else in another area. And only with time can you then realize that something was wrong. Well, like it's normal to go to an extreme in order to come to a normal understanding of it. But yes, that's really my experience.
Yes. Well, overall, I think you go to extremes when, again, it's a question of inner value and self-sufficiency. If everything's okay with that, then you don't have to go to extremes. And the same thing there, for example, I have some days that are very busy. You need to be everywhere, do something, I don't know, go somewhere, solve some issue. So like it's so busy, and you realize that at some point, well, that's it. You're already so tired. And then it's already time like to spend time with the family where you need to give everyone attention. Everyone needs some tenderness, kindness. And I've also caught myself in those moments starting to get irritated. Well, you can see they want like the woman to give off warm feminine energy, but I'm just not there anymore. At that moment, I'm just not there. And what I realize for myself in those moments is what needs to be done. Probably for those who have families who also have this happen after work, for example, to recover. Actually, it turns out you need literally 15 to 20 minutes. And I realized that I need to just ask them. I say, can you not touch me for 20 minutes? I lock myself in a room, I don't know, put on some music, usually just put on music and lie down. And just lying there for literally 15 to 20 minutes. And I feel that like my body has reset. I'm again in a good state. I can give out both kindness and tenderness, and I'm off to hug and kiss everyone. But I didn't understand this before. Before, I felt like I was obligated, and you walk in and you're not even at 10, not -8. You're already somewhere at a 5, and you're just pushing yourself. And then some small movement, I don't know, a child drops something or whatever, and that's it. You're triggered. You start, well, I mean, because that's it. You've reached your limit. And to make sure that doesn't happen, it's probably also part of that same story of being kind to yourself. When you feel that right now you really need to recharge 15 or 20 minutes, it's not that much. You can definitely afford that. Just lie down, reset, I don't know, maybe sit on the balcony for a bit. Well, I mean, find some place where you can actually do that and then be back in that state where you're able to give something back.
Okay, look, I just had a thought that this could be reframed as a daily practice where you have to let others know that you need your own personal space. So it's not about assuming they'll guess, but just stating it as a fact. Well, reaching an agreement, obviously within your family or with acquaintances, friends, but not keeping it to yourself. So essentially saying no sometimes, choosing yourself in the moment.
Yes. And you know what else you just reminded me of? I've learned how to establish this, for example, within my own family. But it was very difficult for me to establish this, say, with my parents or when talking with friends. I was the type who loved to rush off, do things, help out somehow, and be involved. I realized that when you have a family, you're already dedicating a huge amount of your resources just to that interaction. It happens every single day. And plus, when you also have work, for example, colleagues, then on top of that, you add, there are friends, parents, relatives, and at some point you realize that you kind of want to, internally, you want to do something kind, but you just don't have it in you. And this is exactly where kindness lies, where there's understanding. I mean, boundaries are also about kindness. And once they're established, you no longer end up in the red. Like, for instance, I can at some point tell someone, like a friend, Well, sorry, no, because, well, I say no so as not to backslide and ruin the relationship. I'd rather say no in the moment. A person who is sensitive and understanding will understand you regardless. Like, okay, it happens to everyone. Everyone has times when they just don't have the resources. So you say no. And then some time passes, you recharge, and you're ready to keep communicating and being friends.
Right? But that's all about setting boundaries with other people. But look, there are situations where I think many people put pressure on themselves internally. I mean, they're like, okay, I want this. They've set goals or some kind of plans. And then they start to beat themselves up over it inside. So, like, they failed somewhere, and what should you say to yourself at that moment? Or they didn't make it in time, well, it doesn't matter. Different situations happen, something went completely off plan. Basically, how do you talk to yourself?
Talk to yourself. I'm learning too, on this specific point, I'm learning to talk to myself. What happens? It's probably very problematic for those kids who tried to be straight A students. I think C students are doing great here. They just understood the essence from the start, where to stand their ground and move through life like that. Straight A students suffer a lot here because you're kind of like, there's always this, really high bar. It's always good to have a high standard, But at some point, you wear yourself out so much that it's not just the standard. You end up hitting rock bottom because, well, that's it. You're just completely burnt out. How do you talk to yourself? Exactly. And still, no matter what video we record, we always come back to the point that you need to learn to feel your body. Our body will tell us that right now you're overdoing it. Let's stop. The body will say, right now there's plenty of strength. Let's do it. We can just take it right now and quickly jump over. And these moments, they are felt right in the body. And when, say, for example, people are different, by my nature, I'm an analyst. Plus, there are these. On one hand, it's kind of good that you have various certificates, I don't know, education, diplomas, and all that. On the other hand, it's bad because any person, any words, I already have diagnoses, all the patterns, where they came from, where they went. And this process, it's kind of nonstop. And also, when it turns out that you're changing something in your life, doing things, and you see some results, you immediately want to drag everyone around you there, and say, guys, do it like this, and it'll be like that. And it gets in the way a lot. That's why we always talk about the body, because the only thing that truly helps me is returning to the body. It's heart awareness, lower abdomen awareness, awareness of the feet, Earth's core awareness. So when I shift my attention to the body, I'm like, oh, that's it. Now we need to stop. I understand through the body that it's time to stop. Why? Because while I'm up here, full of ideas, I don't know, burning with desire, I have so much energy. I miss the moment when I'm already exhausted in my body. And when you return to the body, that's when it happens. A little 10 to 15-minute break, then keep going. A little break, then keep going. So, this rhythm, you can track it.
Okay, but that's if it's by the body. I also just feel it in my body when I'm tired. But still, there are moments when you have some deadlines. And it's like, you can't not finish or not do something. The body is really tired. You understand, well, like that it's not okay. But still, actions are required from you. And here's the question. You've dropped down into the heart center, lower abdomen, the feet, but still your brain, that's where the problem usually is. It tells you, why didn't you, for example, think about this earlier? Well, you could have started earlier, but you decided to do it at the last moment, and now you're like this. What should you, at least mentally, I think it still seems to me that you need to say something mentally to yourself to calm the brain and then move on in a calm, I don't know, maybe do a breathing practice as well.